Alright guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today. For this one we are going to do another out and about video. So I am in Tampere here in Finland and we're going to have a little look at this place behind me. So this is Pyynikin Brewhouse, if I've pronounced that correctly. Probably not, but it's named after this particular district, this particular area of Tampere. And yeah, we'll do as we always do. We'll go in, we'll have a look around, we'll try some of the beers, and yeah, we'll see what food and things they have. But I hope you guys enjoy this one. This will probably be my last out and about video that I film in Finland on this trip actually. So yeah, it should be quite nice. But I've been in, had a little look around already. They have got some nice beers on tap. I hope that you guys will enjoy this one as well. Let's get started. Alright guys, so we are really quite central here in Tampere. If you just look behind me here, you can see the bridge and the river and yeah, music club and things like that. But this is actually a really nice building. It's got an outdoor area that kind of goes from here all the way around the back to this side over here. But this part on the left is the restaurant. This part here on the right is the bar, and you can kind of go in into the middle. So yeah, this will be that. So we'll go in this door, and I might split the walk around into two bits actually. We'll see how we go. But yeah, you can come in this part here and it tells you quite clearly restaurant and then pub and food. So yeah, the restaurant, I have to say, is really pretty cool. Looks very, very nice. But yeah, you can see they've got a bar here as well. They've got another room kind of through the back, which looks pretty cool. You can see the kitchen over there, the big barrel. And yeah, if you come through this side, I'm nearly falling over the thing there. But yeah, you come through here, you've got all the merchandise and things. You've got the little pilot brewery, and you've got the bar. But yeah, my dad's over there. We've been sitting there doing some filming and things, but you go over here and yeah, I'll let you see the outside as well, because this is the outside part of this is pretty cool too. So yeah, let's do this. So yeah, they've got this nice big outdoor area around here. You can sit, look out onto the river and just see it. But yeah, I think this goes all the way around the front actually, and they've got a little outdoor bar too that you can order from. So maybe I need to come and film a couple of the tastings out here. Looks pretty good. So yeah, that is your outdoor bar here, which looks good. Yeah, need to see where this bit goes in. I think that actually just takes us back where we were. But yeah, they've got this lovely outdoor area here. So yeah, I think if I remember rightly, we go left here and it takes us back in to the bar. So yeah, you can see here they've got all these kegs and things, and yeah, it's pretty cool. So let's go over, we'll walk back, and my dad still has his sauna beer, but I'm going to get another one because I've done some tastings already. But that's a little walk around of Punikin Brewhouse. Alright guys, well, time for our first tasting then here at Pyynikin Brewhouse. So yeah, there was a beer on the list that kind of struck me as being very similar to one of my favourite beers back home in the motherland of Scotland. So I thought, you know, I have to try this one. So this beer is simply called Cascade Lager. Comes in at 4.6% ABV, and I think from the name that you guys can guess what this one is. So yeah, when the beer poured, I had about a half finger of a frothy, I would say kind of cream coloured head. You can see if I put my fingers behind the glass, it's got a little bit of natural haze to it, but yeah, lovely kind of bright golden colour, this one. It looks a little bit like a kind of German Helles, or you know, like a Czech Letzak, something like this. Probably more like a Czech Svetli actually, come to think of it, like a blonde lager. But there is a wee tiny tint of amber to it. But yeah, this beer reminded me a little bit of the Schiehallion from Harveston Brewery, very close to home in Klitmanager. One of my favourite beers, like I say, it's a Czech style Pilsner with Cascade hops in it, absolutely lovely. But yeah, appearance wise, you know, if you have a beer called Cascade Lager, I don't think this one looks too out of the ordinary. Let's have a wee closer look at the aroma then and see what we can get from this beer. So yeah, for me, it smells really nice and bright and crisp. Yeah, quite a bit of hoppy character. It actually really does remind me of Schiehallion quite a wee bit. So the malty backbone of this beer, first off, you can smell there's a little bit of bread crust in there. It's got more of a kind of white bready character to it, and there's a little bit of, you know, McVitie's digestive, biscuity, kind of sweet biscuity characters coming out of this one. So I do like that about it, and there is a little touch of like a slight dryness and crispness from what I would say is Pilsner malt, but yeah, it doesn't quite smell like a Pilsner. It doesn't smell quite dry and crisp enough in that sense, but there are some sorts of Pilsner qualities coming out of this beer. Yeah, I really like how this one goes about its business from the malty side of things. But yeah, quite bready, a little bit kind of a little bit sweet and biscuity and caramelly, of course, as we said, and then a bit of bread crust underneath. But yeah, a little touch of that Pilsner malty crispness coming out of this one. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is very, very nice. On the hoppy side of things then, definitely a little touch of earthiness to this one. You've got some nice herbal character in there as well, so I think there might be another hop in there in addition to Cascade. But yeah, you've also got a good little bit of a kind of floral aromaticity coming out of this one too, which you would expect from Cascade, but there's a bit of a more oily, grassy note to it as well. The fruity characteristics are very much in line with what you would expect from Cascade too. It's a hop I'm very, very familiar with. So you get a little bit of that kind of sort of figgy, oily note out of it. There's a little bit of a sultana type thing too. And then yeah, you've just got that little touch of grapefruit and a wee bit of brighter citrus as well. It smells really, really nice. The fruity side of this beer is really quite nice and oily, I have to say. I like how that goes together. So yeah, definitely a kind of classic sort of smelling Cascade beer, this one. It really does remind me of Harvest and Schiehallion. So yeah, first tasting then, that's the aroma. Let's have a little look at this one and see how we go. So yeah, the Cascade Lager, 4.6% ABV, Slangia. That's pretty nice. Very straight up, kind of no frills, but I like it. I do like that actually. It's kind of difficult to place exactly what kind of lager it is. It is a little bit, you know, it has got a little bit of that kind of Helles type thing to it, but it's got a little bit of an IPL type quality as well. So yeah, this is quite nice in that sense for sure. Yeah, so malty backbone of this is actually quite a little bit sweeter than and kind of more balanced actually, I would say as well, compared to what the aroma would have you believe. So there's a little bit of bread crust under there, some white bread as well. Further back on the palate, I'm definitely getting a wee bit more of a kind of grainy, wholemeally type bready character out of this one too, which is quite interesting. It has almost got just a little touch of Vienna Lager type note to it as well. So I think there's a wee bit of Vienna malt in here. There's just something distinctive about that reminds me of that kind of grainy brown bready character you'll get from Vienna lagers. But yeah, in the dead centre of the palate, you've got there is a little touch of sweet caramel in there, and as you move further out from it, it gets a little bit more McVitie's digestive biscuit-like, and that sits on top of the white bread in the middle third of your palate. On the sides of the tongue as well, for the hoppy side of things, there's a little bit of earthiness in there. As you come further forward, it's a little bit kind of herbal, and as you push toward the front corners of the palate, you start to get a little bit of floral aromaticity. But round the front curve of the palate, a little bit more oily, a little bit of zesty, grassy character coming out of it. And yeah, everything you'd expect from the green component of Cascade. The fruity note is kind of what you would expect as well. So yeah, you've got on the fruity side of things, you've got this sort of base of it's a little bit sultana-like toward the back of the front third of your palate, but as you come further forward, it gives you a little bit more of a kind of figgy red note, and then at the front end of the palate again, it's got a wee bit of a kind of it's got a slightly, you know, almost kind of peary type thing as well, which is quite interesting. But yeah, there's a wee bit of the grapefruit and that brighter citrus sitting on top of that. But these are all things you would expect of Cascade. You know, it was the classic sea hop from the Yakima Valley in America. This is one that I just really wanted to try, you know, a Cascade Lager, very much like Schiehallion, of course. But yeah, let's round off then with a mouthfeel. For me, quite an oily lager, bottom end of mid-body, but definitely one of the heavier lagers I've come across in recent times. So as I say, nice and oily. IBUs I think are a sort of standard 20, 25-ish. Malt base has a bit of graininess to it and also a little bit of sweetness. And then yeah, the fruity side of the beer is nice and oily as well. But yeah, I like how this one goes together, so gets a thumbs up from me. So that is the Cascade Lager, our first beer that we're tasting here at Pyynikin Brewhouse. So catch you guys on the next tasting. Alright guys, so as you can see, they have got a little brew kit here that looks like it might be about 1,000 litres or something like that. But yeah, it looks just very much like a little kind of pilot brew kit. From what I understand, most of the beer that Punikin do these days is actually brewed down in Estonia. But yeah, you can see that we filmed the first tasting just in front of this. But yeah, that's their little pilot brew kit that they have here. Alright guys, so just a little quick look at the tap list here. So yeah, they have their Mandarina Lager, the Sona Olu, Cascade Lager, Cloudberry Saison, Kuningatar Goes, Puniston, Kulpiter, whatever that is, I'm not sure. Red IPA, Black IPA, those both sound quite interesting. Expressions number 1, the Papan Vanilla Stout. Then they've got these ones labelled PBH, which I'm guessing are just brewed in the little pilot kit over there. So they've got a double stout, a double IPA, a sour, and then a few other ones down here. Mango Milkshake, Strongbow, Hartwell Long Drink, and then the Laden Eriquis New England IPA. So quite an interesting wee tap list they've got here, but we definitely need to try some of the PBH ones that are brewed on the kit here. Alright guys, well, time for tasting number 2 then here at Pyynikin Brewhouse. So yeah, this beer caught my eye just because of the name of the beer really, because it is pretty Finnish. So yeah, this one is called Sauna Olut, and sauna, of course, sauna is a Finnish word, we all know what that is. But yeah, I just thought, you know, trying a sauna beer in Finland would be quite nice. So yeah. As you can see, this one has poured a lovely kind of bright golden colour. When it poured, it had about a half finger of a frothy, I would say kind of cream coloured head. Not a lot in the way of visible carbonation, other than some, you can maybe see a few bubbles just going up it there on that side. But yeah, it pretty much looks a little bit like a kind of Helles Lager or something like this, to be honest with you. So yeah, pretty interesting appearance-wise. I wasn't sure what to expect with this one. I just thought, well, sauna beer, let's try this. Let's have a wee look at the aroma and just see how we get on with this one then. Curious to see what style this beer actually is. So, I think this one, it really seems a little bit like a kind of Helles Lager or something like this, just a light kind of blonde lager. So, yeah, something like that. It really does smell like a Helles Lager. So straight away with this beer, there's a lot of kind of white bread coming out of it. You definitely get a wee bit of bread crust in there. But yeah, fresh white bread crust. There's a little bit of sweetness in there, you know, a wee bit of McVitie's digestive biscuit or something like that. Yeah, a little bit of that going on for sure. At the back of the nose, you do get a little bit of an almost kind of crackery, Jacob's cream cracker type note out of the beer. There's a little bit of a slightly fluffier, more airy white bread as well. But yeah, bread crust, soft white bread, a little bit of biscuit, McVitie's digestive, as I said, a little bit of a Jacob's cream cracker sort of thing, and a more airy type white bread out of this one too. So yeah, quite an interesting malt base to this one, but to me, just on first impressions, it really smells along the lines of like a Helles Lager or maybe a Czech Svetli, something like this. let's have a wee look at the hoppy side of the beer. Yeah, so hoppy side of things with this one, it's got a little bit of earthiness to it, but that's quite minimal. A little bit of herbal character as well, and there is a little bit of floral note. But for me, it's actually quite a wet, freshly cut grass type aroma that you get out of this one. It's really, it's pretty straightforward actually. It's pretty straight shooting. On the fruity side of things, a little bit of sultana, a little bit of kind of pear, a little bit of fresh green apple. You know, it's something like that that's going on with this one. It's a very wet, fruity character that you're getting out of this beer. So yeah, I like how that goes together. It really just smells quite bready. It actually reminds me of some of the Mexican lagers that I've been having in recent times. The last one we had was from Dig Brew in Manchester, if I remember rightly. So yeah, interesting aroma with this one. As I always say, take a wee bit of time and just ponder over the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But let's have a taste of this one and see how we go. Slange skål, cheers, keepies. That's nice actually. First impression is very smooth. Yeah, really quite smooth lager beer, this one. It has got a little bit of a more kind of grainy backbone to it. Like in the aftertaste, it actually does build up to be quite grainy, which is interesting. So yeah, I quite like how that goes together actually. Interesting. So yes, it's got this dry, white bready character to it, which I think is really interesting. So yeah, on the malty side of things, then let's start with that. Then backbone of this beer is definitely fresh white bread crust. On top of that, there's a little bit of a kind of crackery sort of thing to it. You've got a bit of that, yeah, Jacob's cream cracker sort of thing. Some white bread. Yeah, Jacob's cream cracker, white bread, and it kind of stays like that. It gets a little bit drier into the aftertaste the further in that you go. So yeah, I do quite like how that goes together. You'll notice in the middle of your palate, it actually builds up. You get a little bit of biscuity sweetness coming out of this one. There is definitely, in the very centre of your palate, you get a little bit of that oily McVitie's digestive biscuity sweetness. As you go further out toward the extremities of that middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of, you do get a little bit of a more kind of grainy biscuity character coming out of this one, which I find quite interesting. Yeah, this is nice, very, very easy to drink. On the back third of your palate, there's a little bit more of a fluffy, airy, white bready sort of thing. And it's interesting with this one because on the back third of the palate, the beer actually tastes a little bit sweeter. The middle third of the palate is a little bit drier, come to think of it. On the hoppy side of things, there's a little bit of earthiness on the sides of the palate. As you come further forward, it gets a little bit more herbal, and as you reach the kind of front corners of the palate, it's got a little bit of floral note, but round the front curve of the palate, really light and grassy, and it's quite wet in that sense too. But the further into the aftertaste you go, you start to get a wee bit of zestiness out of this. Front third of the palate and the fruity side of things, the base of that of course is kind of white bready. Yeah, a little bit of white bread, then on top of that you're getting the fruity side of things, a little bit of sultana, a little bit of there is a wee bit of a slightly apricot-y note coming out of this one too. But then as you move further forward, you get more of an oily, airy character, and again fresh green apple. I really like this actually. This sauna beer is quite interesting for sure. I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink this again. Really, just very nice, easy-going beer. It really strikes me as being somewhere between a Munich Helles and a Czech Svetli of some description, but it just has a bit of a unique grainy character to it, which is interesting. Mouthfeel wise, you know, it's top end of light bodied, carbonation smooth. Yeah, smooth carbonation. For me, the mouthfeel is Overall, it's quite smooth, but again, it is a little bit oily. IBUs, I would be very surprised if this is more than 20. Malt base is nice and smooth. It gets a little bit drier later on, and of course, you've got a little touch of oily, fruity character out of this. But a very, very easy beer to drink this one. So yeah, that is the second beer tasting done then here at Pyynikin. This is the sauna beer at 4.5% ABV. Some kind of I would say it's either a very, very light golden ale, or it's some kind of like Hellas lager beer, this one, but very nice nonetheless. Catch you guys in a second with another one. So yeah, this is a little bit strange. The merchandise cabinet is quite empty. They've only got some Punikin t-shirts. They've got these kind of winter type hats that you'll find in the Nordic countries, and they've also got a beanie hat as well. But there's a little look at some of the prices for you there. So yeah, really not sure exactly what these words are, but yeah, I think we can say T-Pita, that's probably t-shirt, but yeah, not a lot available here in the merch section, unfortunately. Alright guys, so time for tasting number 3 then here at Punikin Brewhouse. So yeah, the beer that we're going to have a look at now is actually one of the ones that is brewed in-house in the little pilot brewery that I showed you. And yeah, they've got 3, I think, that are brewed in-house, so we might need to try all 3 of them. We'll see how we go. But yeah, quite excited to see what this one is going to have in store for us. So yeah, this beer is simply called Pbh Double Ipa. It comes in at 7.1% ABV, which I think you would agree with me is a little bit light for a double IPA. I always think you have to be at least, 8% to be able to call it a double IPA. But certainly from its appearance, it looks like a West Coast double IPA. And there wasn't anything on the sign about any of the hops or anything like this. But yeah, when it poured, it had about a quarter finger of a frothy, I would say, kind of cream coloured head there. And you can see it's got this lovely kind of amber colour to it. It certainly looks like a West Coaster, to be honest with you. But yeah, 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of that head there. Overall, it looks pretty nice. You can see the beer does have a little bit of a kind of natural haze to it. But let's have a closer look at the aroma of this one then, and just see how we get on. Yeah, aroma-wise, I'm going to tell you straight away, this is an old-school West Coast IPA. I always get very excited when I have these, because yeah, there's not enough of these around anymore, in my opinion. So yeah, you can tell straight away this one's got a bit of the dankness and bitterness that you want from the style, and it's got the big oily fruity characters and that bit of booziness. I think this is going to go down a treat, so I'm very, very curious about this, needless to say. So on the nose then, straight away with this one, you get that lovely big sweet backbone. So a little bit of kind of brown bready bread crust in there. You can smell that sweet kind of brown bready note as well. There's a lot of caramel, like straight up caramel in this one. You do get it's very, very oily in that sense. It's really quite fragrant in its brown sugary notes. But yeah, you've got a little bit of that kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing going on as well. I'd be very curious to know the malt profile of this. I think there might be a lot of crystalline caramel and stuff like that in this one. But yeah, big oily caramel, a little bit of biscuit, brown bread, the bread crust, 1 or 2 very slightly woody characters coming out of this one too. So yeah, I like what this one. I do like how this goes together, I have to say. Yeah, malty wise, gives you everything you want. On the hoppy side of things, there's a little touch of earthiness to it. You do get that nice big dank green component which you want from these beers. The new school West Coast IPAs for me often fail to deliver on that. They often just use late edition and dry hopping, which is what you would use in New England IPAs. The old school West Coast IPAs always had a lot of early edition hops and a big bitterness. I'm thinking that this one will probably deliver on that, which I want. I want that from a West Coast IPA. But yeah, there is a nice little bit of a kind of piney resin thing in there, a little bit of floral aromatic spice, but yeah, a little bit of floral aromatic spice, good bit of piney resin, and you've got some nice bright, zesty, grassy character. On the fruity side of things, definitely getting quite a bit of orange out of this. I wouldn't be surprised if there's something like Mandarina Bavaria, Amarillo, maybe even a little bit of Mosaic, something like that in here. but the rest of the beer smells quite familiar, like maybe a bit of Simcoe or Citra or something like that. There's definitely a bit of that oily mango, a bit of passion fruit as well, and a wee bit of a zesty lemon. I mean, I really like how this goes together. Aroma wise, I think this is going to be a bit of a treat, so I think we should get stuck into this one. So yeah, this is the Pbh, I guess, which means like brewed in-house, something like that. Double IPA, 7.1% ABV here at Punikin Brewhouse in Tampere, and I should point out that we are here on the 14th of July 2022. You'll be seeing this video a little bit later than that, of course, but this should be good. Slange, skål, keepies. That is quite nice. The bitterness in this one really is kind of building. It's a wee bit more grainy and it's malt based than I was expecting. I thought it was going to be a big oily caramelly sort of thing, but it takes a wee bit of time to show that. In the beginning you really get a little bit of oiliness out of this beer, but it's nice. If I was to try this blind, I would think it was stronger than 7.1% as well. Like I said earlier, 7.1% is actually not that strong for it's not that strong for a West Coaster, especially a West Coast Double IPA, but it works. It does work quite nicely. So yeah, proper old school version of this. I've got pink on my fingers now because of the pen on the glass, but yeah, the backbone of this beer, absolutely a little bit of a grainy kind of bread crusty note to it. Again, it reminds me of Vienna malt a little bit. I do wonder if they're using Vienna malt in the beers here. It just reminds me of those Vienna area brewed Viennese lagers that I had recently. Really nice. So yeah, you've got that little bit of grainy bread crusty backbone, a little bit of a kind of rye bready sort of thing going on. Definitely a bit of a lighter wholemeal bread coming on top of it too. On the middle third of the palate you can feel this sort of oily circle. There's a little bit of toasty brown sugar in there. In the dead centre of your palate, big oily caramelly note, and as you go further out from that, it's a little bit more kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity like. I really like how that goes together in this one. Yeah, it's the malty base on this gives me everything I would want. I like it. Further back on the palate, yeah, you get a little bit more breadiness out of it from the yeasty character, but that is very nice. On the hoppy side of things, back corners of the palate, there is a bit of earthiness there, but as soon as you come further forward from that, you've got that big piney resinous note sitting in there, and then on top of that, toward the front corners of the palate, you get the more kind of spicy floral aromatic. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Columbus that's in this. I'm not 100% sure about Chinook, but I think Columbus with that big spicy note out of it. Round the front curve of the palate, bit of a more oily, grassy note there, a wee bit of zestiness to it, and then behind that you've got the big oily fruit. So let's look at those. So yeah, fruity note. It's really nice in this one. I get more tropical fruit out of it in the flavour than I did in the aroma. The aroma is really leaning toward the orange. So yeah, at the back of that you've got at the back of it you've got a wee bit of the stronger grapefruity note. As you come further forward, more passion fruit and mango. I think Citra, something tell me Citra in this beer. And as you move further forward into the front half of that, you'll get the oily orangey thing. So I think Citra, Amarillo, maybe a wee bit in Centennial in this one as well, because just behind the front tip of the tongue you get that big zesty kind of lemony character, which I suspect would be Centennial. But yeah, this is a proper old school West Coast IPA, this one. I really like it. 7.1%, I think it feels a little bit heavier than it actually is, but it certainly gives you what you want in terms of flavour profile. Let's round off with the mouthfeel then. So, mouthfeel wise, it's kind of top end to mid bodied for me, carbonation smooth, it's nice and oily, it gives you a hell of a lot of bitterness. I think this is a sort of 70-80 IBU beer. The malt base has a bit of graininess, good bit of sweetness, feels boozy, which you want from this style, and you've got the big oily fruits. But I think that is everything we need to say about this one. So yeah, let's leave it there. That was the brewed in-house Pbh, I think it was, Double IPA, 7.1% ABV. Really enjoyed this one. So catch you guys in a second with something else. So yeah guys, they do have a beer fridge here as well. So these are the things, of course, that you can take away. So they've got some hard seltzers and things like that here. So you can see crushed blueberry, sharp lingonberry. That one is deep mango. They've got Punikin's own long drink as well. Raspberry wheat, Berliner Weisse, which would be quite nice. They've got a big imperial stout here. The Ruiz IPA, I think that's the red IPA, the double decker IPA at 4.4%, the American IPA, the Mosaic Lager, premium pills, Cascade Lager. I'm not sure exactly what these are. I think Mustika is kind of just like, it's kind of similar to Swedish mousse, mousse I guess we could say. Just like, what would it be, like a very sweet fruit juice, but then yeah, Mosaic Lager Zero, and also a winter edition one as well, which could be quite interesting. But yeah, these are some of the beers you can get to take away. There you can see the prices. A half-litre can is €4, a 33 is €3. So yeah, not bad. Alright guys, time for tasting number 4 then here at Pyynikin Brewhouse. So this one I think could be very interesting. This is a style that you very rarely see anymore, and when I saw it on the tap list I thought, you know, we need to try this. And I think this could well be one of the first, I think this is either the first or second Finnish brewed version of this style that I've ever had, so this is quite cool as well. So this beer is simply called Red IPA. It comes in at 5.5% ABV, and from what I understand, this is one of the ones that is brewed over in Estonia. This isn't one of the ones brewed in-house on the little brew kit that you saw. So yeah. So, as you can see, and as you would expect from a red IPA, this one has poured a lovely, very dark, kind of coppery mahogany colour. And we've got some seagull friends now. I fucking hate seagulls, they're assholes, pointless animals. But that's by the by. Anyway, so when this beer poured, it had a nice finger of a sort of fawn coloured head. That is faded away to just be a thin foamy layer with a nice island in the middle. But yeah, lovely kind of rich copper mahogany coloured beer, this one. Not much in the way of visible carbonation, which I'm sure you guys can see. You can see it's got the nice pink writing on it there as well, but just a few visible bubbles going up toward the top there. And like I think I said earlier as well, yes, it is 5.5% ABV. So not the heaviest of red IPAs that we've come across, or red ales, imperial red ales, whatever you want to say on the channel. But yeah, it certainly looks the part. Let's have a wee look at the nose and see what we get from this one then. That smells pretty nice actually. So straight away with this one, you get the mix of fruits and also the mix of kind of malty character that you want from this style. Yeah, gives you everything you would want. My hair is getting blown about in this wind, but yeah. With this one then, a little bit of kind of fresh wholemeal bread crust in the backbone. On top of that, yeah, you get that wholemeal brown bread again. But then good little bit of McVitie's digestive biscuit. There is a bit of a sweet caramel to this one. I wouldn't say it's toast or anything, but quite a bright sweet caramel. One or two little woody, slightly nutty notes out of it. Yeah, but the thing with the malt base is that overall it actually smells quite light and quite crisp in a way. So yeah, I like how that goes together. The malt base actually gets sweeter and sweeter the more that you smell of it. On the hoppy side of things, there's a little touch of earthiness there, but not a lot. The green component really leans toward a more floral and bright, grassy sort of note. So, yeah, I really like how it goes about its business in that sense. Very, very bright malt base for sure. Yeah, hoppy side of things is good as well. Yeah, quite a bright grassy note out of it too. It's certainly one of the more kind of fragrant and aromatic red IPAs that I can remember having come across. But yeah, seems quite nice. On the fruity side of things, it's got a little bit of a, I get that kind of figgy kind of note out of it, a little bit of a candied strawberry almost. There's a wee bit of orange in there as well. I think there's Cascade in this. It's got that kind of figgy, sultana-y type thing as well. So I think there's a bit of Cascade in this. Just something familiar about it. Maybe a little bit of Chinook as well, because the more that I smell it, the more the green component does give you a little bit of the piney resin. So yeah, a little bit of piney resin, a little bit of bright grassiness, and then yeah, there's a wee bit of just a bit of a lighter kind of zesty grassiness. I really like how this goes together. Yeah, I think it goes together nicely from that side too. So a lovely smelling beer, this one, but certainly one of the more fragrant red IPAs I've come across on the channel. So let's get stuck into this one and see how we go. So this one is simply called Red IPA, 5.5% ABV. Slange it, skull, cheers, and kippies. Ooh, that is good actually. I like the big maltiness that this beer has. It's interesting because the malt base is a lot more oily than it's really a lot more oily and bready than the aroma would have you believe. I thought this one was going to be really biscuity, and it is in the aftertaste, but in the beginning this beer is big and kind of grainy and bready. Interesting for sure. Yeah, I guess a thumbs up from me, this one. I like this. Not enough of these styles. Yeah, not enough of this style around at all either these days, which it really is a shame. The red IPA was always good. I liked the big malty IPA. The rye IPAs were always quite interesting as well. But yeah, backbone of this beer, good little bit of kind of more grainy, slightly toasty bread crust. This one like a slightly well-fired morning roll, I guess we could say. But on top of that, I think there's definitely a rye presence to this one. You get that kind of more grainy but still slightly sweet rye bready note, some wholemeal brown bread on top of that. In the middle of your palate you've got that brown sugary character, so you've got a little circle of kind of biscuity character that forms the base of the brown sugar. Then on top of that, in the dead centre of your palate, you get more of a kind of oily caramel, which I do enjoy. So big oily caramel, a little bit of a more McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing as you go further out from it. Yeah, the malty base in this is very good, and that's critical with a red IPA. Pretty sure this is like a red rye IPA, but not 100% sure. On the back third of the palate, you definitely get more of a fluffy, bready kind of note. And yeah, I will say that overall this beer really leans more toward the malts than it does the hops. The hops are kind of complementing the malts, if that makes sense, rather than it being, you know, big and bold like a West Coast IPA. But it works. On the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, you've got a little bit of earthiness. As you come further forward, it's a wee bit more herbal, and as you reach the front corners of the palate, there's a little bit of floral character there and some grassiness around the front curve of the tongue. I would say that overall, the beer itself is quite. It really is quite oily. In a sense, the green component doesn't make it overly bitter, but the fruity component of this one is quite nice too. So the base of that front third of your palate underneath the fruits is again the brown bread. The fruity side of things is quite orangey, definitely. Yeah, so when you take the beer in, you get a little bit of a kind of candied strawberry figgy sort of thing out of it. Yeah, there is a wee bit. I'm pretty sure there's Cascade in this. So at the back of that front third of your palate, there's a bit of the kind of sultana, dried white green grapey sort of thing. You get the figgy notes, I think, from Cascade. There's a wee bit of a kind of peary note in there as well. But as you move further forward into the front of that, it is most definitely a big oily orange that you get out of this one. And I certainly like that about this beer. Yeah, this gives you everything you would want from the style, really. It's definitely got a bit of a rye presence, so I would not be surprised, as I say, if this is a red rye IPA. And I think that's everything we need to say about the flavour profile. Let's look at the mouthfeel. So, yeah, kind of top end and mid-bodied for me. I found that with these Pyynikin beers. They're all pretty thick in their mouthfeel, which is quite nice. So, yeah, quite thick in the mouthfeel. But yeah, top end to mid-bodied, smooth carbonation, big and oily. IBU wise, this isn't going to blow the head off you, but I think this is maybe about 50 IBUs, 60 at the most. malt base, grainy, sweet and toasty in the malt base, and you've got that big oily fruity character, but it gets a big thumbs up from me. I've certainly enjoyed this one. So yeah, let's leave it at that. This was the Red IPA, 5.5% ABV. We're going to go on and try some dark beers, I think, in the next one. So catch you guys in just a second. Alright guys, well, just a little quick look at the menu then. So as you can see, you can get a house Caesar salad, a malty cod treat, fish and chips, beer battered fish and chips, Vienna schnitzel, Retina ribs, the brewery burger, crispy chicken burger, veggie burger, or you can get some fries. So yeah, I have to say the Vienna schnitzel is actually quite expensive at €31. Yeah, so remember, for dollar prices, you know, the euro and the dollar are pretty much on par these days. The euro has dropped quite a wee bit in value recently. Probably take away about 10% for sterling, and then for Swedish krona times by 10. So yeah, 310 krona or so for a schnitzel. I do think that is a little bit expensive, but I have noticed in Finland food can be a little bit pricey, but you are going to pay about €20 roughly for a meal here. But remember, Finland's the richest country that uses the euro, the most expensive country that uses the euro. It will be a little bit more expensive for you to come here as a tourist, but you know, wages here are very high. But yeah, €20 for a meal out is pretty much what you're going to pay, actually. So I've personally found that the beer here, the price of the beer is actually okay. It's about the same level as Swedish, but the food is a bit more expensive for sure. But that's a little look at the menu here. We ate already, so we aren't going to try the food this time, unfortunately. But yeah, there you are. Alright guys, well, time for tasting number 5 and our penultimate tasting then here at Pyynikin. So we're going to go to another style that I don't think there are enough of these days, but this one I think should be pretty nice actually. So yeah, this one is simply called Black IPA. It comes in at 8.5% ABV. So yeah, we'll see what this is going to have in store for us. As you can see, this beer poured a lovely dark ebony rosewood colour. Oh, the sun's disappeared again behind the clouds. It was actually quite nice and warm in the sun. Now it's kind of chilly and windy again. But yeah, lovely dark ebony rosewood colour. Not much in the way of visible carbonation in this one, but you've got a lovely kind of quarter finger of a frothy, I would have said, kind of medium tan head. That's faded away to just be a very thin foamy layer, and there's a little island in the middle of this one. But yeah, some small carbonation bubbles just heading up toward the bottom of that head there. But in terms of what you would expect appearance-wise from a black IPA, I don't think there's anything surprising about this one. What I am curious about though is whether this one is going to be more of a West Coasty type black IPA, or if it's going to be one of the more modern New England type ones that's kind of smooth and things. Just from the look of it, I think this might well turn out to be a more old school West Coasty one with the caramelly malt base and stuff. Plave Nancy Peria, of course, also from here in Tampere. It's quite a famous one in this style. So let's see what we get from the aroma of this one. Ooh, aroma wise, that is very, very nice. What I would say straight away about this beer is that it actually smells a little bit more like a stout. Let me just check, because I've got two dark beers here, and yeah, that one's definitely a stout as well. But she said to me, the one that went in my left hand was the black IPA, the one that went into my right hand was the stout. But yeah, this one, definitely the black IPA. I was just surprised because this one really is quite big and sort of leathery and malty and stuff. So the house brewed stout does smell quite different. We'll check that out in the next tasting, of course. But yeah, just surprised there's not a wee bit more hoppy character to this one. So the first impression of this is that it's got that big leathery long boil backbone to it. So remember, the standard wort boil seems to be usually about 90 minutes. I think that's fair to say. But the longer you boil the wort in a beer, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But you're also going to get more leathery, brown, sugary flavours, and you'll notice this when you try certain imperial stouts. Quite often they have long boils, and you get these big leathery things. Barley wines and sometimes doppelbocks and Scotch ales use that technique as well. Just boil the wort a bit longer and let it caramelise more. But this one certainly has that. So the malt base of this beer, it's woody in the backbone, You have this kind of roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crust character as well. Yeah, roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crust. There's a wee bit of, there's definitely a good little bit of brown bread in there as well. It's almost got a bit of a kind of oatmeal-y kind of character to it as well. But in the dead centre of this one, you've got those oily, leathery brown sugars. I don't know if I'd go quite as far as treacle and molasses. It is more like a kind of bright caramel. You do have a bit of that sweet caramel in the middle. You've also got a little bit of a biscuity note too. One or two little nutty aromas which are quite interesting. And really, as I say, the aroma, the malt base in this one strikes me as being quite similar to an oatmeal stout or something like this. Yeah, I like how this goes together. But it really, it doesn't have that much of a hoppy presence to it. We need to see how that comes out in the flavour. But on the hoppy side of things then, there's a little bit of earthiness. Not really much in the way of floral character, but there is a wet grassiness. That is all I would say about this beer. If I was to smell this blind, I couldn't tell you that this was a black IPA, quite honestly. I would not be able to tell you that. Yeah. On the fruity side of things, there's a good little bit of red fruit coming out of it, a bit of a figgy, kind of raisiny note, but there's a wee bit of an orangey character as well, and that I think would be the giveaway that it's an IPA rather than an imperial stout or whatever. But it smells really good. It does smell very, very nice, this one. As I've told you many a time before, probably my favourite black IPA that I've ever reviewed was the black malts and body salts, although I would now say, having had it very recently at the Plevnan Siperia, it's very close to that. So that's a beautiful black IPA, that one. But although it's technically an imperial stout. But yeah, you do, with this one, raisins, a little bit of an oily fig, some black currants, but I do get a bit of an oily orange out of this one too. But yeah, so gives you the fruitiness you'd expect of a black IPA, gives you more of an imperial stout malt base, and you get no hoppiness. So the aroma from this one is really quite interesting. I should point out too, I think I forgot to say that this is not one of the house brewed beers, if that makes sense. This is brewed at their whatever larger facility they use. I've heard that it's Estonia from Riku, but I don't know, I'm not 100% sure. Let me know in the comments section below if you do happen to know that, where they brew their beers. But let's have a taste of this one then and see how we go. So yeah, this one is the Black IPA, 8.5% ABV, Slange, Skull. Cheers, Kippies. Oh yeah, straight away when you take this in, Black IPA. But I will say, that is really weird how this beer does that. It really gives you more of an imperial stout vibe, but then yeah, as soon as you take it in, you get that green hoppy character out of it. I've never come across a black IPA that masks its green component as well as that in the aroma. So that's a quirky thing about this one. Yeah. Yeah. So, backbone of this beer, lovely little bit of roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crust from the backbone of the beer. On top of that, you get a slightly woody character as well. Some sort of brown bready notes in there, and those are actually quite crisp and light, and they form the base of the beer, and that's quite interesting. The malt base in this one is quite different in the flavour to what you would expect, having looked at the aroma. I will say though, I do like this one. I do like what it does. So yeah, centre of the palate then. Centre of the palate. I would say on top of that kind of crisp brown bready layer, you've got this circle in there, and the base of that is like a toasty brown sugar. You do get a little, as you move into the centre of the beer, there's a little bit of sweet caramel, but you also get a bit of a leathery type character out of this one. So I wouldn't be surprised if this beer has had a slightly longer wort boil, but this one isn't anywhere near as thick as the other ones that we've had. Even the red IPA that we did in the last tasting was thicker than this. So that's really quite quirky actually. As you go onto the back third of the palate, you can feel that the bready character is a little bit more airy. So you do get a little bit more of that kind of bready note out of it. But yeah, the malt base on this is quite nice. It's one of the more bready black IPAs I've had. So it does have a wee bit of that New England character, but obviously not as thick and creamy as some of these New England black IPAs that we're getting these days. So yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate there's a little bit of earthiness. As you come further forward it's a little bit herbal. There's a wee touch of floral note there in the kind of front corners of the palate. Then round the front curve of the tongue it's got a little bit of that lighter kind of grassy thing to it. But the green component is quite, when you take the beer in, it's quite punchy, but then it fades away just to leave you a kind of wet grassiness. Fruity side of the beer, again, is quite nice. A little bit sharper raisin. Underneath that you get a bit of that oily figgy sort of thing. A wee bit of plum actually as well. And yeah, as you come into the front half of that front third of your palate, you do get a wee bit of a slightly orangey note out of this one. So I've got a feeling this might be like a bit of Chinook, a bit of Amarillo or something like that. It feels kind of familiar. Of course, there's, you know, Simcoe actually works quite well in black IPAs too. So it could be, you know, the red fruits in this one could be from Simcoe. It can behave really interestingly in these dark malty beers. I think that's everything we need to say about the flavour profile of this one. But again, it's 8.5%, but it's remarkably light actually. I think that's quite the interesting thing about this beer. So to round off then with the mouthfeel, what would we say? Yeah, mid-bodied, right in the middle of the spectrum. Smooth carbonation, a little bit oily and slick on the mouthfeel, but like I say, kind of light for a black IPA, especially a sort of West Coasty leaning one in my experience. IBU wise, I think this is 70 or 80 IBUs, but some of your bitterness is coming from the malt in this one as well as the hops. You have to remember that. The fruity side of the beer is the fruity side of this beer is quite nice. A little bit of sharpness in the beginning, but it mellows out really well. And yeah, malt base is balanced, so toastiness, a bit of smoothness, and a wee bit of sweetness. But I think that's everything we need to say about this beer. This one was the Black IPA, 8.5% ABV. I enjoyed this. Let's go on to our last tasting in just a second. Catch you very shortly. So yeah guys, this is one other thing here at Pyynikin. You can actually get some other types of food. So yeah, you can get a pita kebab, a chicken kebab with fries, another kind of chicken kebab that I've never heard of, salads for €12, and some French fries and halloumi cheese fries as well. So yeah, this is quite interesting, I have to say. I like it. But yeah, once again, this is your outside area. There you are. Alright guys, well, time for our 6th and final beer tasting then here at Punikin Brewhouse. So we're going to go to one of the house brewed beers here now. So this one is one that's brewed on the pilot kit from what I understand. So this particular beer is called Linnamainen, if I've pronounced that correctly. Probably not, because Finnish is just a bit crazy as we've been learning over this week here. But yeah, this one comes in at 7.8% ABV and they're calling it a double stout. So yeah, it should be quite interesting. They actually did have a bigger stout on tap, which was like a big 11.9% one, but yeah, I thought it was a bit early in the day for that, to be honest with you. That's a late night beer, that's one to send you off to sleep. But yeah, I also wanted to try something else from out of the 3 home-brewed beers that they had. So anyway, as you can see and as you would expect from any stout, this one has poured a lovely dark ebony rosewood colour. The head on this one when it poured was about a quarter finger of a frothy, I would have said light tan head. That has faded away to just be not a lot now. There is just a little bit of a foamy ring around the edge of the glass. But yeah, it looks pretty nice. As you can see, not much in the way of visible carbonation with this one, just a few little bubbles going up towards the bottom of the head there. But yeah, looks pretty good. Let's have a wee look at the aroma and see what we get from this. Yeah, this is pretty nice. I did get a little whiff of this in the last video, by the way, because the last one from Aroma really did smell like an imperial stout. So yeah, I kind of had an idea about this one before. So the kind of impression that I get from this is that it's quite a big sweet stout. you know, you've got this kind of almost marshmallow candy floss sort of backbone to it. It's really interesting. So yeah, it has this bubblegummy candy floss, marshmallowy type backbone to it. Underneath that though, you do get there's a little bit of kind of bready character in there. There's a bit of roasty toasty malt, but that's quite minimal. The whole vibe of this beer is pretty smooth actually. So yeah, it's got this big sort of smoothness to it. Yeah, big smoothness. Yeah, it's quite difficult to put your finger on. I mean, you do get a little bit of chocolate out of this one. It's got like a sort of 70-80% cocoa chocolate. There's a bit of vanilla in there. As I say, you've got this marshmallowy, bubblegummy, candy flossy type vibe to it as well. I don't get much in the way of brown sugar. I'll say that and then I'll start smelling it, but I really don't get much in the way of brown sugar from this one. It's almost a little bit like a kind of adjunct stout. I think this one's maybe got a few. It smells certainly like it's got a little bit of flavour essence or something like that in it. Yeah, the way that goes together is quite interesting in the malt base, and it almost has a wee bit of that oatmeal stouty type character to it as well. On the hoppy side of things, there's not too much to report there. A little bit of earthiness, a little bit of a herbal character, some light grassiness. Yeah, it's interesting. Certainly got my interest, this beer. Fruity side of things, yeah, fruity side of things, it's got a little bit of a, it does have a wee bit of raisin to it, it has got a bit of a more oily plum, but yeah, kind of figgy, blackcurranty, blackberry-like. The aroma of this is quite interesting. I have to say it's maybe not my favourite aroma I've had from a stout before, but I'm quite curious to see how it's going to turn out in the actual flavour profile. But as I always say, take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma of these beers and see what you expect. But I think we should have a taste of this one now and see what we've got. So yeah, this one is the Linnamainen, if I pronounced that correctly, a 7.8% double stout as they're calling it, our last beer here at Pyynikin Brewhouse. Slange, skål, cheers, keepis. It's quite nice. It's actually just quite a smooth stout. It actually turns out very similar to the aroma. It's almost got a little bit of this kind of pastry stout type character to it, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, there's a wee bit of a pastry stout type character to this one. Yeah, so on the backbone of this beer, definitely roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crust. On top of that, some brown bread in there as well. But I'm also getting this kind of granola. I'm also really just getting this granola type thing. I don't know if the Finns have an equivalent, but in Sweden you've got Knäckebröd, which is this cracker type thing, but it's quite a strong cracker, if that makes sense. Trying to think of another descriptor for that, but it's got this really kind of, it's like a brown cracker, rye cracker, something like that. You've got that sort of thing going on in this one, and that really reminds me just of pastry stouts. But yeah, you get a few woody and slightly nutty aromas come out of it. Flavours, I should say, not aromas. I keep doing that in these videos. I always mix up the word flavour and aroma for some reason, but yeah. Toward the front of that middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of a nutty kind of character to it, a little bit of woodiness as well. But yeah, on top of all this kind of knäckebröd sort of thing, there's a bit of brown bread, but then you get these marshmallowy, bubblegummy, candy flossy type flavours. It's kind of strange actually. But if you go to the back third of your palate, it feels a little bit more muffin-like. It's got a little bit of that more kind of muffin, chocolate cakey type character type thing going on. It's definitely more bitter toward the back of the palate. Other than that, I don't think there's anything to say about what's going on with the malty side of things. But yeah, on the hoppy side of the beer, little bit of earthiness there. As you come further forward, it's a little bit more herbal, and as you reach the kind of front corners of the palate, it's definitely a little bit floral. But yeah, around the front curve of the tongue, really quite light and grassy. The green component in this one is quite the green component in this beer is kind of small. Actually, it really takes a bit of a back seat. Let's look at the fruity side of things. So yeah, that front third of your palate, at the back of that, there's a little bit of a brownie, muffiny type thing, but then yeah, a bit of sharper raisin underneath that. It's really kind of quite candied actually. You start to get this black curranty sort of thing, and that lingers into the aftertaste, but the fruit has this really kind of candied sort of vibe to it. Yeah, it's interesting. But certainly in terms of its style, this is very pastry stout-like. And for me, pastry stouts, I don't enjoy them that much, I have to say. I would rather have an old school Russian Imperial Stout, or if I want something sweeter, I would go for an Imperial Milk Stout. This beer, yeah, it's pastry stout, and it's just not my favourite beer. It's just not my favourite stout I've come across, I have to say. But again, I didn't know this was going to be a pastry stout. If I'd known that, I probably would have gone for the kind of vanilla stout that they had. But that wasn't one of the house brewed beers. So yeah, pastry stout, not my ideal type of stout, I would say. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel then, to round off this one, yeah, it's mid-bodied. One of the lighter stouts I've come across. Carbonation is quite smooth. It's quite wet for a stout actually. It should be a little bit more creamy for me, I have to say. IBU wise, I think this is maybe 70-ish IBUs. Quite a lot of that coming from the malt base, a little bit from the hops. The malt base, as I've said, quite grainy, a little bit dry. You do have this sort of candied granola type thing to it as well. But yeah, you have on the fruity side of things a little bit of sharpness and a little bit of wetness to it as well. So quite an interesting beer, this one, but as I say, not the greatest fan of pastry stouts, and that is the category I would put this one in. If I'd known it was pastry stout leaning, I would have gone for the vanilla stout that was listed on the board as well. But yeah, this was house brewed, so I thought, you know, we should try this one. But yeah, an interesting beer, and definitely cool to try another one of the house brewed things. We'll leave it there. But yeah, that is the end of your sixth and final tasting then here at Punikin Brewhouse. Let's leave it there. I'll go outside and give you my final thoughts in just a second. So see you then. Cheers. So yeah guys, just another little cool thing above the bar here. Look at all the bottles that they have. Some of their old beers. This is really pretty cool, I have to say. I like little things like this. There you go. Alright guys, well that is our time up then here at Pyynikin Brewhouse in Tampere. So yeah, my dad and I had a nice couple of hours here just kind of sitting and trying a few different beers. I tried 6 beers in total, and for each little 200ml thing it was about €4, which I thought is, you know, for Finnish prices is not bad. That's about $4, 40 Swedish kroner, yeah, maybe about £3.50 sterling, something like that. The food that was coming out looked pretty good. I mean, €20, as I said, is roughly about the price that you'll pay for a meal here in Finland. Although I would say that I thought the, you know, €31 for a Wiener Schnitzel and €20 as well for a Caesar salad, to me that's just overpriced. The other things are, you know, fair enough. But that's just my opinion. I had enjoyed the time here. The staff were really pleasant, they were really nice, willing to explain the beers and things like that. The only thing I would have said, again, I'm not a great fan of music in these kind of venues. I prefer just atmosphere noise, but I think that's just because of my time in Germany and the brew houses, you know, the Brauhouses there. Just enjoy the, you know, just the people noise. I don't really want to sit and listen to someone's playlist or whatever. That's the only other thing I would say. But yeah, from what Riku has told me, these guys have been having a little bit of financial trouble and things, and yeah, they have been brewing their beers in Estonia. But so yeah, a couple of the beers, I think 4 of the beers that we tried would have been brewed in Estonia, if that is the case, and then 2 of them were brewed on the little pilot kit that I showed you in the brewery as well. So yeah, a little bit of pilot brewing going on, and they have got a bigger facility somewhere else obviously. But yeah, overall I enjoyed my time here at Pyynikin Brewhouse, and always cool to show you another pub and brewhouse, I guess we can say as well, on these out and about videos. So yeah, this is going to be our last one in Finland. I hope you've enjoyed this kind of Finnish mini-series that we've been doing, so I will catch you guys again very, very soon. We'll need to figure out what the next destination is going to be. Slanja just now Keepis, Kitos, and I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Check out my social media, check out Pyynikin Brewhouse's social media, and there will be some more Finnish beer reviews coming up very, very shortly, I think.